All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the October 5th, 2023 Des Moines Area Metropolitan Planning Organization Transportation Technical Committee. We'll go ahead and call the October 5th meeting to order. So we'll get right into the agenda here. The first item number 2, approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion and a second for approving the agenda, please?
So moved, Loading.
I got Madeline, and I'm sorry, who was the second?
Wilwarding.
All right, thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. All right, we got a motion and a second. And again, since we're doing the meeting online, we're not going to have everyone unmute and say aye. We will just have anyone opposed to the motion, please speak up. So is there any discussion or questions on the motion? Okay, is anyone opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. Thank you. All right, item number 3 is a approval, looking for a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes from the September 7th meeting, please.
Approve, Miller.
Thanks, Mark. I got a motion from Mark. Thank you.
Second, Bastard.
Thanks, John. Okay, we got a motion and a second. Is there any comments, questions on this motion in the meeting minutes? Okay, is anyone opposed to the motion, please?
Ludwig abstain.
Thank you. Okay, we have 1 abstain. Any other opposed or abstain? Okay, hearing none, that motion is approved. Thank you, Tracy, for getting all that information out, please. Well, that brings us to item number 4. That's an update on the new terminal for the Des Moines Airport Authority. Dylan, are you going to introduce that one?
Yep, I can do this while Kevin gets his slides pulled up here, but we wanted to have Kevin Foley with the airport come and give a presentation to us this morning. I think everyone's aware that the airport's under tremendous initiative to get the airport terminal redone, and they had a groundbreaking ceremony yesterday, so congratulations on that, Kevin. But with that, I'll turn it over to Kevin and let him give us an update of where things stand today.
Is my screen, are you on sharing? There we go. So Dylan, have you got my screen? Super.
Yes, we've got it.
Shaking your head, yes. Yeah, well, thanks. We did have a groundbreaking yesterday. It was a great event, and it didn't rain. We were afraid, in the middle of a drought, that we were going to have a rain day on our groundbreaking. It was outside, so it didn't rain on us, and it was a very, very good day. This lift emblem, anytime you see this emblem, it means that you're going to deal with something that's under construction. It probably has something to do with the entire terminal project, but may not be exactly just the terminal building itself. But it is just a identification for all the construction we've got going on out here. This stoplight chart that's up right now has been around since 2014. It simply depicts the adequacy of all those items listed at the bottom of the chart, the number of gates that we had, tickets, security, all those things. And you can see at 3 million total passengers, which we weren't supposed to hit until 2027, we were solidly in the red in the size of the terminal and in pretty much every aspect of the terminal. In 2019, we were just short of 3 million passengers. We ended up with 2,920,000 passengers, so just 80,000 passengers short total. So far this year has compared year to date, and I don't have September's statistics yet, but year to date through August 2023, we are 4.3% higher in passenger traffic than we were in our record year of 2019. So we're growing again. I feel that, we're past the worst of the pandemic recovery and back in full swing to growing again. When we are all done with the project, this slide that's on the screen here, and we do hand this out. If anybody wants it, feel free to send me an email and I can send you a PDF so we can print it in 11 by 17. But this is what the first phase of the terminal will look like. That number 7 there is the processor. It's in the industry, it's called a head house. But that's passenger screening, bag claim, and ticket counters. And then on the back side, there will be 6 gates, concession areas, restrooms. And then you see that short bridge that connects over to number 16, and those are the existing concourses. We're actually in the process of flipping some bridges from the C2, C4, and C6 side of the terminal. We're going to put those on the other side so that when we get all done, we will in fact have 18 gates. And then item number 10 is the existing bag claim that we have today. Originally, this terminal design anticipated a 3rd floor on the terminal. That was cut. I mean, that was I believe it was a $40 million savings by cutting that 3rd floor. That was going to be the admin offices. So where does admin go then when the new terminal is built and the old one is torn down? The bag claim area, the existing bag claim area, is the newest part of the existing terminal, and that's where admin will be located. And that's under design as we speak. The construction that you have seen as you come down the elevated roadway, which becomes the entrance to the new garage, and then the new garage is in this slide, or the rendering of the new garage. When we get all done with that garage, it'll have 1,100 spaces. We desperately need those spaces. The garage still fills, even though we raised rates. I keep telling my staff there's an economic solution to absolutely everything. And hourly parking was filling on a regular basis. And while that revenue is great, we do not want hourly parking to fill. We need that space for people to drop passengers off or pick them up, or just for people that come to the airport to do business with the airport or with the airlines. And it was filling such that if you were having a meeting, people ended up having to take a shuttle. So we did raise the rates. That seems to be accomplishing what we want, at least for now. And we'll see what happens as we go forward. But this is what the new extension will look like. And these are the renderings of the new terminal itself. So this will be the approach to the terminal. The terminal, I'm not sure if you saw the news and I have not seen any of it. We had so many events yesterday and meetings yesterday that I didn't see any news, and I haven't read the paper yet. But I've been told that they didn't get things exactly right. This terminal is 750 feet long. So that's 2.5 football fields. So you enter in the center from the skywalk coming across from the new extension. You look to your left, you'll have a football field, 1.25 football fields. You look to your right, you'll have 1.25 football fields. And I do have to say that the procurement method and the design method on this is using the construction management at risk procurement method. And like most of you, or all of you probably, previous to that bill being passed a little over a year ago, I guess it was a year in July, you would have had to have done this project in a design build method of procurement. With the CMAR method, it has just proven to be so beneficial during the design phase. And with all this glass up here, it's probably one of the best examples. Curtain wall is typically more expensive than storefront. We were going to have to do storefront for budget reasons. The architects didn't want it. We didn't necessarily, as the owners didn't want it, but the budget is driving everything with inflation. So the estimators and the CM, the construction managers, put their heads together, and they actually figured out a way to construct a curtain wall at the same cost as what we would have had to have paid for a storefront. And that's just one example of the benefits of the construction management at risk process. Right now, there have been 3 bid packages in that process that have been let. The first one was foundations, utilities, some site work, and steel. The second bid package was the glazing, and then this third bid package that it'll be on Tuesday's board meeting. The guaranteed max price on the third one will be on the board meeting for the board to accept. And that's elevators and escalators, elevator and escalators in that third one. So bidding it as we go along. This is the ticket counter area. As soon as you enter, there's no wasted space. If you think about how we traveled today as compared to what was going on when this terminal was built. There's a lot of wasted space in the existing terminal. So you enter, the ticket counters are right there. A rendering. I can't tell you that that's what the check-in kiosk are going to look like for sure. But the space and the finishes are pretty well set. Going up the escalators on both sides with that center staircase, then you can go on upstairs if you check in. A lot of people will come, we anticipate will come directly across the skywalk. Everybody has a carry-on bag now. There's not as many bags that are checked going across the skywalk. Bag claim area, and again, you can see all the glass in the second floor. Directly above bag claim is passenger screening. Again, no wasted space. It's all right to there when you first enter. Going on up to the second floor, then this is the meet and greet area, the area where everybody will pass through this area. Those passengers on the left have just come through the exit lane. So they have just arrived and are leaving. But also this is the area that is where the screening is off to the left of the screen right here. The passenger screening is, and so everybody goes through there. These passengers have just come through screening. That's the revesting area where people are sitting off on the left, and then the gate area over on the right. And I'll point out that B1 down kind of in the center of the screen, the one that's split up green. That's an amenity that we hope to keep in when a gate is actually boarding. When we're boarding through a gate, it will light up green. So it will tell you as you come through screening, if you know which gate you're on, you look down, you see it's green, you know you better hustle because they are in fact boarding. As opposed to this A1 here, it's not lit up, and it will have either pictures of the destination city on the next flight along with the weather, or possibly advertising on the screen when that gate's not in use. Of course, we still have to pay for this. I have to give a shout out to the Polk County supervisors. They passed a resolution in September that will allow a referendum to be placed on the November ballot. That should that referendum pass, it will allow the supervisors to bond on behalf of this project and lend those proceeds to the airport authority. Long and the short of it is the airport authority we've always anticipated bonding ourselves, but if in that process that I just explained, it would save a little over $70 million estimated anyway, $70 million over the life of the loan, which would be 20 years. Those bonds would be 20-year bonds. And the difference simply is that the airport can issue general obligation bonds. The bonds that we would issue would be general aviation revenue bonds, and they would just simply carry a little bit higher interest rate. Nobody, Wall Street wins on interest. Interest doesn't buy anything, so that's the reason or the thinking behind that process. You see at the top there, this is authority reserves, revenues, and bonding, 296 million, and then you can follow down through. Most all of you on this meeting, the regional municipalities and counties have contributed to this project. 28.6 million, appreciate that very, very much. Prairie Meadows is contributed, committed 5 million toward the project. The garage that I showed earlier, the majority of that garage is being constructed by a state infrastructure grant. The rest of that grant went into design for the terminal itself. But the governor, that is the American Rescue Plan Act dollars, most of it is anyway, and she contributed that to all commercial service airports in the state. Got some of that funding, but we got 58.7 million, and then there is another 10 million that is in the legislature that the legislature put in the budget for this year. We've applied for that money already, have not heard back, but we anticipate we will get all $10 million of that. And then we get into the federal community funded projects and on down, and all of that is federal dollars, most all of it administered by the FAA. This is the first time in history that there has been monies allocated specifically for terminals through the FAA, and probably every airport in the nation has some type of terminal project. Des Moines is very, very fortunate that we were light years ahead of everybody else. We already had our environmental assessment done, and we were under design when all of this money became available. So we have fared fairly well thus far on those applications. That ATP one at the very bottom there is very, very competitive, but we've done fairly well, and we're in the process of submitting the 2024 application for those dollars again. Bottom line is, when you add all that up with the terminal and the apron projects that are necessary in the garage, we're still showing a $54 million shortfall. If you've watched the news, and they did get this right, that we have asked the county if they would bond up to $350 million on behalf of the airport. So if you add the 54 and the 296, that's where we come up with 350. We're still applying for federal dollars. We're hoping to get that number down. We don't want to be that far in debt. If we are, we have to charge the airlines. That's one of the issues on rates and charges that we charge the airlines, and it just makes us a little less competitive. And again, I just explained this. This is the bonding and why we've asked for the bonding. 70 million divided by 20 years is about $3.5 million a year that it would cost additional if we bonded ourselves. And then finally, the intersection. The runways are completely reconstructed over the last 10 years. We have completely reconstructed the runways and the primary taxiways. The last piece, which was just completed here at the end of September, was the intersection, and that was a major concern because it shortened both runways, and we were operating all of the flights on a shortened runway. We had to put temporary pavement down, and that pavement is in the process of, we have to tear it back out, and it's in the process of being torn out. But that project went off without a hitch. The only day that we had any delays, we didn't lose any flights, but we did have some delays because of fog one morning, actually 2 mornings. And that project Again, for the first time, because there's federal dollars in that intersection as well. The FAA allowed us to put an incentive to complete that project early, and the contractor received all of the money on the incentive. They completed a week early. So great shape there. Nobody should have to touch the community shouldn't have to touch those those runways again for at least 30 years other than general pavement maintenance. And a schedule as we move forward. We're at 60% design, wrapping up 60% design. That's due the first part of November. First part of April, 100% design of the terminal itself is due. And then scheduled right now, the final bid package on the terminal will be let in September. Trying to align some funding with that last bid package, and we may have to push that out to 2025 because of some dates on the funding itself, but trying to work around that right now, hoping not to do that. Date of beneficial occupancy of the terminal itself in the fall of 26. It's actually October of 2026 is the schedule right now. And then the fall of 2027, the old terminal will be gone and the road completed. And so the first phase of the project will be done. If additional funding were received, we would go right into the second phase of the project and continue to build gates. As many as we could, and hopefully we'll get additional funding so that we can keep going. So I've stopped sharing. That was the end of my slide deck. I didn't check the chat to see if there was any questions, and I don't see any questions in the chat. So if anybody's got any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Kevin, thank you so much. That's congratulations. That's impressive to be where you are. That's I like the logo because it is a monstrous lift. That's for sure. So congratulations, and I'm also happy to see the success so far with the CM at risk. I think my own opinion is I think you are greatly reducing the risk of change orders and unexpected things down the road by using that method. At least that's been my experience using that method. So I think you're that's awesome to hear you're using that as well. And I also would like to say, from a traffic standpoint, the way you have all realigned all the entrance roads is so much better from an understanding standpoint of the passengers and just from a traffic flow standpoint already. So that's awesome. So very, very impressive. So I do have one question though for you. Is there a future phase for the administration? Is there an option to expand? I know I'm looking way ahead, but to get the that building that the administration is going to be in obviously is not a new building. Is there an option to move them someday to near the terminal or?
Yeah, would very much prefer to have administration in the terminal. And so on either the second phase or the third phase, hopefully that floor can be added back in and put the passenger or the administration right there in the passenger terminal. That's really where it belongs. And it's just, and I know all of you have experienced the exact same thing. This entire project was supposed to cost $411 million back in 2016. Fast forward, the budget on the first phase of the project's $455 million, and there's two more phases. Estimated cost to get the whole thing done, completed, is $770 million, and that's what inflation has done to us. So, but yes, it's a long answer to your question. There would be constant effort to get that third floor back in one of the next phases.
Yep, and I'll tell you, we have experienced a similar cost increases in our vertical infrastructure as well. I think it was something like from 2020 to 2023. It was an obscene inflation. It was something like a third, 33% or 40% in like 3 years. It was obscene. So we were tracking that, but yeah, again, congratulations where you're at. That's impressive. Is there any other questions for Kevin?
Kevin, this is Mike Ludwig. I just wanted to double check. So the our initial terminal then will have a Skyway connection to the kind of existing gates to give you those extra number of gates. And then phase 2 would be is that to the, I guess it'd be the east end of the new terminal, or is it in between the existing gates and the new terminal?
No, you got it right. It's on the east end going toward Fleur moving to the northeast. That's actually the second phase is the cheapest phase of the whole thing. And we could build, I mean, if we have enough money to just add 2 more jet bridges and gates, you could do 2 if lucky enough to have funding to do the whole thing, which would add 4 more gates. That would be great. At the end of the day, there is a retaining wall that comes up along Fleur, and you would gain 2 more gates there. So you'd end up with 6, but that's the very last thing that'll happen, simply because of those make those last 2 gates very, very expensive, and you wouldn't do it until demand dictated it. Except to put that retaining wall in and only get 2 gates, that makes it pretty expensive.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Kevin? Oh, and one other clarification, I think the DOT's tracking was a 53% increase in cost from 2018 to 2023. So that's a brutal challenge. So
yeah.
All right. Well, Kevin, thank you so much. That was a great presentation. This is awesome news for all of us here in the Metro. And again, congratulations on getting to where you're at. That's impressive. Very impressive.
Thank you. And thank all of you. Again, this wouldn't have happened without all the effort and support from all the municipalities. So appreciate it very, very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kevin. All right. That takes us to let's do another presentation. We've got item 5. Brings a presentation on the U.S. EPA Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program. Dylan, are you kicking that one off? Is that right?
Yeah, I can kick it off. There's not a whole lot more to say on that. Allison is pulling up her slides here, but obviously a familiar face to us all. Allison, former MPO employee, and who's moved over to Polk County Public Works to be a sustainability planner to oversee this climate pollution reduction grant through the EPA. And so she'll talk a little bit about that and kind of the next steps with that whole program. So I'll turn it over to Allison.
Thank you. Hello again, everyone. It's good to see, I guess I can't see many of your faces besides Steve. So hi, Steve's face, and hi, everybody, and your names and all that. It's good to be back with the MPO. As Dylan mentioned, I have moved to Polk County Public Works and have taken on the position of sustainability planner to carry out a grant that I brought to the MPO for consideration last spring that Polk County moved forward with instead. And so this slide most of you have seen last spring, so I won't go too much in depth, but I did want to at least put some of these bullet points up there. So when the slides are posted, you kind of have some of these at your fingertips. But the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant, which soon you won't have to hear that word or the acronym again, it's a mouthful, but it was a non-competitive grant that has 2 different phases. Phase 1 is the planning grant, which is what I'm carrying out and what the state of Iowa passed on last spring that then sent $1 million to the 3 largest MSAs. And since that time, obviously the Des Moines metropolitan area has accepted, the Davenport area passed due to staff capacity issues. And so Cedar Rapids and Iowa City are doing a combined plan and have $2 million to do that. One of the things that I'll really focus on today is the implementation grants. Those were that NOFA was released recently, but just to bring you back to what this plan really is, it's really to support regional climate action plans. We do have a couple mad dash things for next spring, but over the next 2 years, we'll be putting together a comprehensive plan in this space. And so I get to lead that effort. So some things I just like to say off the top is some things I will and will not be doing, and I won't carry on with this too much, but I will be convening and connecting and informing a lot of the things that I did at the MPO, running data analytics on our greenhouse gas inventories and working on our low income disadvantaged community benefits analysis and workforce and things like that. And of course, it's my job to make sure that all the federal requirements for this grant are met. And I am lucky enough to have placed some Green Iowa AmeriCorps members within my office, and they are honestly my flotation device at this point, but helping them learn this space and kind of create professional development, not only through this plan, but while this plan is in process. And if you remember me, you might remember that I'm pretty realistic. I'm well aware of where I can kind of push things and where I can't, and I'm quite motivated. After all these years, I still have not shut up about climate change. So some things that I will not be doing is attempting what I can't change. I'm well aware that I cannot set any rules, regulations, policies. I can't determine what actions that any city or the region put forward. I don't have the power to do so, but I can, through convening, connecting, and all the things on the left, help all of your jurisdictions walk down this path and then coalesce that in the final plan. And one thing to keep in mind is that my position is based very much on John Swanson's position at the county as well in the watershed space. And I am housed at Polk County, but I'm really working throughout the Central Iowa region. And so we have seven counties on board at this point. So a population of about 800,000. So I work for Polk County, but I will be traveling all over and working all throughout the region. And another thing, just because sustainability has so many pieces within it, I won't have all the answers, and I'm sorry for that, but I will make sure to take any questions down, and we'll find those answers. There's lots of questions in this space, and so if I don't have the answers, we'll go find those answers. So please, as we make our way through this, continue to ask the questions, because I think a lot of questions need to be answered for us to make any progress in this space. So I won't belabor on this too much, but you all know what an MSA is for the most part. So for this grant specifically, it's the Des Moines and West Des Moines MSA. And so that really focuses on these 6 counties, Guthrie over to Jasper, Madison, and Warren. And because of the connection with Ames, even we're having, up to 6 lanes being put up there, and there's a lot of workforce as well as economic activity going in between the two. Story County was invited to be part of this process, and they've accepted that as well. And so right now, we're looking at a 7-county region, again, about 800,000 people within this region. So I won't go too much into this either, but you can see here kind of the list of things that by next spring, which is that priority climate action plan list, is due. And then August 2025 is when that middle list of all the required things is due. And so for the next about 6 months, I'll be working on very high level jurisdiction focused pieces that can be put forward and moved on. And again, I have the Green Iowa folks to help me with that. We did have the NOFO, which I'll go into next, but within the implementation grants in the planning packet for the original phase 1, there are some quotes that I just want to kind of pull out and put in your psyche, and that's this plan and these grants are open to entities that receive the planning grant, as well as the collaborating partners in the regionally based plans will be eligible for the grants. And so does Windsor Heights have to lead this? No, as long as they put projects in the plan, then those funding measures would be eligible for funding, similar to a hazard mitigation plan. So when you submit your hazard mitigation plan, you can't apply for those FEMA funds without having that project in there. And so we really want to make sure that that first one, as this funding is kind of clamored after, has these things in it so we can move forward on it. And again, so the comprehensive one that I'll come back to you again and again and again to discuss really broadens that scope to the whole region, really to our citizens and things like that, really looking at every sector and a very much a more in-depth analysis. And of course, with any federal program, there are tons of status reports that I'll be giving to the federal government over the next 4 years. So
everybody is pretty excited about this grant that was released recently. The NOFO came out on September 20th, and that released $4.3 billion in funding. The minimum awards for this is $2 million up to $500 million, so really quite a big range. And within the planning, or within the NOFO packet, there are different tiers within this, so 2 to 10 million, 10 to 20 million, I think, and things like that. So there are separate sections and different target areas for that funding. However, this $4.3 billion is really estimated to only fund 30 to 115 projects. And so that's something to keep in mind as we kind of move forward, is that, the collective collaboration and putting things forward that we all can work on in this kind of mad dash is going to be really important, because not every community, there's more than 30 communities just within our planning area. And so I'll really be trying to hone in on what we can do together for this first dash and then move from there. So you might have seen earlier, by March 1st, I have to have the priority climate action plan to the federal government. And so these dates can be quite confusing. So March 1st, when the plan goes in. However, as we're this planning process and this first funding pot are going to kind of be running hand in hand. We're going to be doing planning as well as project development at the same time. And so it's going to be a little bit of a flurry, but I will try to be as best of a traffic cop as I can be in this space, because by February 1st, there's an optional letter of intent to participate that we can submit to the EPA saying, hey, this is what we kind of are looking at. And one of the reasons the EPA is asking for this is because they are building the staff for these programs as they, are already in the mix. And so this is kind of giving EPA a warning that, hey, there's there's 3,000 projects that are coming in. You're going to need a lot of reviewers at the table and things like that. And so that's why they're asking for that. But the full application for this phase 2 is due April 1st. So we're really kind of in a tight timeline here about getting these projects ready to go. So on the right there, you see qualified entities. And like I said, if you're a partnering jurisdiction within this plan and you put projects forward, you are limited to 2 applications. So one is an individual project, and I can see Steve, so I'm going to use Des Moines as an example. So Des Moines could put one individual project for the city of Des Moines, and I'm just going to make something up. Say they want to do a nuclear power plant, and obviously that's out of the realm of possibility for right now. But if Des Moines wanted to do that, that would be something that they could do on an individual basis and submit. Again, we have that threshold of $2 million minimum, 500 million maximum. The second application can be as the lead applicant for a coalition project. Coalitions are built up of those government entities, and they really have some language in here that says the coalition, it really has to be based on the fact that if one entity is pulled out, the whole thing kind of collapses. So this regional piece, this regional focus is really, really important. And so that's why you'll see me talking about what we can do collectively for the next 6 months, rather than what Des Moines or what Clive or what Waukee, Ames and things like that can do on their own. In the project, or in the funding materials, it does say the MPOs are eligible as well. So if the MPO wanted to move forward with something like that, that would be an option. Again, collectively, we'd have to do that. And just hitting on this again, so funding measures identified in the Priority Climate Action Plan. So I'm going to be asking staff from across the region to participate in workshops and discussions to try to put these things forward so we can make sure that what we're going to be applying for in April is included in that plan that I submit in March. And one thing I really want to hit on is there's quite a few evaluation criteria within the NOFO itself. And one of the biggest filters that I can really see being a hurdle is that this pot of funding really is seeking out to fill gaps. And it says pretty much this funding needs to be evaluated for other sources of money that could come in. So, in the EV space, we have the carbon reduction, we have the national EV infrastructure, we have the charging and fueling infrastructure, even STVG could be used for that. And so I really don't envision
EVs necessarily being a major piece of this. However, that doesn't mean it's off the table. But we really, when we put these applications in, that's one of the main criteria that gets quite a few points is, have you looked at all the other funding sources out there? And why is the CPRG funding the funding pot that you should be going for this project? So that's something that we'll really be thinking about. And so I wanted to kind of suggest some next steps. And of course, as the lead staff for this, I will be helping the MPO kind of walk through this. And I'm happy to, again, convene, connect, however, in this space, but we also can pull in other resources. But really, this is now the time for communities in the region to decide what are our emission reduction goals. It could be nothing. It could be that we want to focus on EVs. It could be that we want to focus on land use and do transit-oriented development or walkable communities, focus on multimodal. We really kind of need to start coalescing that. And really, the LRTP is coming up next, or coming up in the near future. And so there's opportunities to have these discussions. There's also opportunities for you not to hear from me about this stuff, which I'm sure about after all these years, you might be sick of that. So we can tap into organizations like Transportation for America and some of our other memberships that we have on file already to say, hey, help us facilitate this conversation, work through whether it's a land use plan or whether it's policy or whether it's projects, and kind of bring in that third party. Then from there, we need to figure out what strategical pathways we want to take. As most of us know, a lot of grant applications are stronger when it's not just in one plan that it's identified that something needs to be done. So with the LRTP coming up soon, that long range transportation plan really is a space where we could really kind of hash some of this stuff out. We have 2 years for the larger plan. We don't have 2 years for this pot of money that's up next spring. There could be auxiliary plans like an EV one, yada, yada, yada. And there's also opportunities for us not to just take this on ourselves and create some partnerships with public, private, and things like that. And again, like I mentioned on the last slide, the CPRG phase 2 funding really wants to hone in on where are these gaps. And so looking at all these funding sources that are already available, looking at the partners that are out there, and identifying what can fit in certain places and what can't, and pulling that out and then putting that up for CPRG funding. And so that's kind of the last one. The MPO can be an applicant, and I'll hit it again. This is very much for this one. I'd really like to focus on being collaborative as a region rather than competing against each other, because there are only 30 to 115 of these grants going out. And since the state of Iowa passed, I have a feeling that they will really be looking at our state and our metropolitan areas to see, hey, what are they collaborating on? What are they putting forward? And I would guess that, being a state that did not have the state take it, or being from a state that did not accept the original award, that could give us a leg up as well. And again, just a reminder that this is a quick turnaround. So we have less than 6 months to do the initial planning and the project development and write the grant applications and do all the data and things like that. And so I turned 40 in March, though by that time I expect to be gray, and that's perfectly fine. I'm up for the challenge, and that's what I signed up for. So just one more note that I guess I didn't put on these slides is that this $4.3 billion is a one-time thing. So this is not, every year for the next 5 years this will come up, whereas charging and fueling infrastructure is every year for the next, 4 years. We had the cycle last spring. Carbon reduction, there's 5 years of that funding built into the MPO. ICAP is obviously an annual thing, same with STBG. And so really thinking about, okay, if we have a shot at this one-time kind of lottery type of grant, what do we want to go to, and how can we boast ourselves as, one, reducing emissions, collaborating together, making that impact, and then showing that in our grant application. So I've thrown a lot at you. This is not a very small project that we're taking on. It is going to take a lot of discussions and things like that. And so I wanted to plant some seeds. Zach will be coming up next with the carbon reduction pieces. And I think that's somewhere that the MPO really can kind of dig into and see where you want to put that funding towards and how you want to utilize that, so then we can inform next spring's application. So my email has changed since my office has changed as well. This is my email email right here. I know this group is typically pretty quiet, so if you don't want to ask anything right now, by all means, please reach out later. This month, well, over the last couple of weeks, I've been to the Board of Supervisors for almost all the counties. I wrap that up in the next 2 weeks. I'll be meeting with the Metro Advisory Council, MIPA, SERPTA have already heard from me. I'm meeting with the Metro managers, things like that. So I'm really kind of making the rounds so people are very much informed on this. And then by the end of this month, we'll really start buckling down. Once we have this overview, once we have the seeds planted, buckling down and having those conversations. So you'll obviously hear more from me as time goes on, but I wanted to bring this all to you for your consideration and just start planting those seeds and take any questions you might have now so I can be on top of things as we kind of move on. So that's it for me for now. I'd be happy to take any questions that anyone has, or again, reach out anytime.
Thank you so much, Allison. Are there any questions for Allison? Okay, hearing none, Allison. Well, thank you so much for your presentation and best wishes. It is definitely a short time frame for getting all this together. Thank you. So, all right, that brings us to item number 6, a report on the carbon reduction program funding. Zach, are you able to talk to this one?
Yes, thank you. As Allison mentioned, wanted to give you a quick update on the carbon reduction funding program. As you probably recall, this was part of the bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed to include this new program, really to focus on targeting transportation projects that help to reduce carbon emissions. And so over the next 5 years, there's $6.4 billion in funding available for this program across the country. As far as what we have available to us, we received targets from the DOT for that 5-year period. Each one of those years is listed on the screen there in front of you. But you can see that we have just a little bit under $7 million over that 5-year period that we're going to have available to award out to eligible type projects. As far as the projects that are eligible for this, if you look at the list on your screen there, you can kind of see a sampling of what Federal Highway and the DOT have put out there as the different kinds of projects that would be eligible. Anything from traffic management, electrification of truck stops, transportation alternative program type projects, congestion management technologies, ITS, travel demand management. There's a lot of variety of eligible projects. Many of these are fall into some categories that we already award STBG funding for. So that's something to keep in mind. What we are currently planning on doing is soliciting some projects during the STBG cycle. We felt like it made sense rather than to do a separate funding cycle, just to kind of run these 2 different programs, STBG and the carbon reduction program, concurrently. That seemed like an efficient way to do it. So currently our plan is to solicit projects in the upcoming cycle, and those applications would come out in early December, and then we would award projects as we always do in early of next year. We feel like there's several potential ways we could go about this. Ultimately, obviously, it's up to the board how they want to approach this. We could award out the first couple of years and then hold off on awarding the rest until we can think about what we might want to do with it. We could award all the funding out during the 2028 cycle if we found a project that we felt like would make sense. I think overall, from a staff perspective, we feel like it's important to maybe take a step back and look at this funding as a whole, do some planning and strategizing to determine kind of how this funding can be the most impactful for the region. So I think there are still some discussions to have regarding how we approach awarding this funding out. We'll be taking this through the exec and policy committees this month, and over the next few months, I'm sure we'll be having some additional discussions to determine exactly how we want to approach this funding, with the ultimate goal of awarding at least some of it out probably in the next funding cycle. Happy to take any questions you have. I just wanted to kind of make you aware of where we're at with the carbon reduction funding, but happy to take questions.
Thanks, Zach. And just to clarify, when you talk about the next funding cycle, you're talking that you'd be posting this fall with the STB, the same timeline as the STBG.
Yep, so those applications would be available in early December.
Wow, okay. And you were asking about approach to the funding though. Are you thinking like, is one approach is, okay, I see. So the funding was built from 2023 to 2027. So is there an approach could be you give out all 7 million at once, or do you spread it out over a couple of years?
Spread it out, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And I think that's just a matter of how the committee wants to approach that money. It's possible that if there's a larger scale regional type project that could utilize this funding, it might make sense to award it out in a larger lump sum. If ultimately they decide they just want to, award it out to smaller individual projects, then it might make more sense just to do that more on an annual basis. So just some discussions that still need to be ironed out, and we would like to hear any feedback that this committee has in that regard.
Does it have to be spent by a certain time frame or obligated by a certain time frame?
The DOT is encouraging us to get this funding programmed as soon as we can. But it's much like the STBG funding. We just need to get it into our TIP and then move the projects forward with that kind of a process.
Okay. Okay, are there any questions for Zach or any comments or feedback on this grant and this discussion?
One thing to note too on this funding is it's the 5 years or so, the 23 through 27. We don't know if it'll continue beyond that. That's kind of what it goes through the infrastructure bill. Once that infrastructure bill expires, depending on what happens after that, we don't know if this will be a program that sticks around year to year like STBG, or if this will be the one shot we have these monies. So that's something to consider as well, that we might not be able to count on these going forward. Similar to the program that Allison just talked about, this might be kind of a one shot, even though it's a little bit of money over those 5 years. This might be we might not get more than this $7 million again. So we don't know yet.
But we have 7 million now though, right? So I mean, yeah. Okay. Is there a link to Zach to find out more about the eligibility? I mean, I'm even thinking like, can you buy a electric bus with this? I don't know.
I believe that is an eligible activity,
Okay.
and we can get a link sent out in the post meeting email for more details.
Okay.
Luis likes that idea.
It sounds like no one spoke up, or the one option could be just you give the 7 million to Des Moines, right?
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions for Zach or any discussion comments? Okay. Thanks, Zach. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right, that brings us to item 7, report on EV charging reliability and accessibility accelerator program. Carl, are you able to talk to this one, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we recently received the new NOFO for this electric vehicle charging reliability grant, which came out in September. There will be $100 million available. This is what we know as a one-time kind of grant to increase the reliability of chargers in our area. So there's no minimum required ask. So you could literally ask for just a new charging cable cord at one station, and it could get funded. But this is to repair and replace existing non-operational vehicle charging infrastructure that is currently out of order. It's an 80-20 match, and we were told that they are anticipating awarding pretty much all grants that are eligible. So the eligible stations are for level 2 and 3 charging that are networked, and applications will be due here in November 13th. Next slide. So we've reached out to communities that we know currently have down chargers, or what are called temporarily unavailable. So they are displayed here on the map. There are only about 7 in the metro. But owning an EV myself, I know that there are some other ones that are down and could use repair. So one thing that we do need to do very quickly, since the The NOFO came out on September 13th. We have about 4 weeks to add down chargers to that list. They need to be reported to the Energy Alternative Fuels Data Center ASAP, really. So I'm happy to help figure out how to do that with you. But that is one thing that needs to be done, because once that list goes final, those are the eligible locations that will be eligible for funding for this grant. With that, I could take any questions, but yeah, just wanted to let you know.
Thank you, Carl. Are there any questions or comments for Carl?
Carl, this is John. Do the charging locations need to be publicly available?
Yes, that's correct. So these do need to be publicly available. They can be on private property if those already exist, but they have to be available to the public. So I'm not sure if the ones at Facebook or the car dealerships or Microsoft are available to the public at all. But if they're not, they would not be eligible for this funding. So we would need to identify the publicly available chargers in your cities.
Carl, is this application or a pretty heavy lift, or is it we just need to let you know if, like, say if our, I can't remember, I apologize, I should know, but if our chargers at the Franklin Library are not working, if we let them know, let you know, this just gets added, it could get added in potentially, or?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, if there's any stations that are publicly available, we just have to get those added to the temporarily down stations with the Energy Alternative Fuels Data Center, and I will be looking into figuring out how to do that, and can help you out with that. So I'll follow up with more information on how to get those added.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Carl? Okay, hearing none. Thank you so much, Carl. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, brings us to item 8, report on upcoming events. Z, are you able to talk to this one, please?
Yep, thank you. In your agenda packets, you would see I've now added some webinars in addition to some upcoming events, but I also want to make you aware of some webinar and event highlights. So in terms of webinars, 2 interesting ones I've noted are there's a webinar on the assessment and repair of a trail after catastrophic damage, and also one on risk management lessons learned from lawsuits against local road agencies. And in terms of upcoming events in October, we have the Association of Pedestrian and Bicycle Professionals Safety Summit that's online next week. We have the Iowa Trail Summit tomorrow. We have the APA Upper Midwest Annual Conference next week. And at the end of the month, we have a virtual Safe Routes to School Summit. So those are some upcoming webinars and events. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Thanks. Are there any questions for Z? Thank you, Z. And I know Z was presenting their kind of the upcoming October ones. Just also another reminder, November 7th is the Iowa section of ITE for business meeting in Ames. And November 8th is the Iowa Traffic and Safety Forum in Ames. So just those are a little ways out, but just something to keep on your radar as well.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments? All right. Hearing none. Thank you, Z. All right. Any item 9, any other non-action items of interest to the committee?
Yes, Steve, I have one. Just wanted to make everyone aware that the state is currently accepting applications for this statewide TAP funding program. So applications are due November 27th. If everyone remembers, there was not a funding round last year. So instead of the traditional 5, there's going to be $10 million available this round. So awards are anticipated in March of next year, with funds available then following October. So some of the changes that have kind of happened with this program, the state had to update guidelines based off of the new infrastructure bill. One is that communities have to provide a UEI number rather than that DUNS number to the DOT for an application. Eligible entities can't be prohibited from applying. So as part of the new infrastructure bill, not just cities and counties are eligible to apply, nonprofits are part of that as well. So there's going to be increased competition potentially for these dollars. Something else that's becoming more prevalent is Build America, Buy America. If project sponsors are awarded $500,000 or more, and this is related to TAP funding from any federal funding source, then Build America, Buy American applies. If project sponsors award less than 500,000, then those regulations do not apply. And this is something that's going to be continuing. This information is going to be coming out from the DOT, just to make everyone aware kind of what the anticipated cutoff is for when those regulations apply. And lastly, we've seen changes to the Safe Routes to School program. For those of you who are familiar with that, previously, in order to get funding from Safe Routes to School projects, applicants would have had to apply to their local MPO or RPA to receive about 50% funding or 60% funding, and then could apply to the state for the additional 20% of funds. Now, you don't have to do that. Applicants are able to apply directly to the state. Each year for Safe Routes to School, about $1 million will be made available each year. Since this is a double funding round, $2 million will be available this round for Safe Routes to School projects of statewide significance and regional significance as well. Safe Routes are also an eligible activity type with local TAP funding for projects that maybe don't meet that threshold of regional or statewide significance. So basically, there's just an increased availability of funding for these Safe Routes to School type programs. With that, happy to take any questions anyone may have. The application is available on the state's website. Hopefully you all will have a chance to look at that here soon.
And Andrew, this program, I thought the set aside used to go through the MPO.
It still does.
Oh,
state,
okay.
Yeah, the state every year slices off about $5 million for larger projects and makes that available across the state. So we will also be soliciting funding for TAP projects. Here in the future. We'll have, from the MPO's perspective, we'll have additional information in the future. However, since this one does have a November deadline and ours is typically past that, wanted to make everyone aware of the funding availability.
Okay. All right, thanks. Any questions for Andrew? All right, hearing none. Thanks so much, Andrew. All right, that brings us to item 10, our next meeting date, November 2nd, 2023 at usual time at 9:30 in the morning.
Yeah, and Steve, on that, I think that we talked about this in the past. I think that November 2nd meeting, we will try to meet in person.
Okay.
And Zach can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we'll probably have some ability to talk with our project consultants for the Safe Streets for All project that's kicking off. And there might be some other, we'll take that opportunity if we all are meeting in person to talk about some other things, such as a long-range transportation plan. I know there's been interest in streetlight data or similar data sources like that. So there might be an opportunity to have more discussion and perhaps demos on that too, to see if we want to collectively buy into that. So look forward for those items. It'd be a good time for us to all get together in person and have some face-to-face discussions.
Excellent. Thank you, Dylan. So yeah, everyone prepare yourselves for November 2nd to be in person. All right. So, all right. That brings us to item 11. We will consider this meeting adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you.